Welcome in, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. Final podcast of our first basketball season of coverage. The Wildcats unfortunately get put out in the Sweet 16 to the Tennessee Volunteers. Couldn't beat them 3 times in one season. Tennessee won 78-65 in a game. Kentucky was just never competitive. Only led 3-2 in this game and didn't have a single lead for the rest of the game. Jacob, tell me a little bit about the game. Obviously, we watched a little bit together, so we have some of the same takes this week.
Yeah, obviously, sucks to see the season end this way, especially with a team that you can be competitive with. You beat them twice throughout the regular season, but you said it, just never in this game. It was never competitive from the moment. My dumbass continued to take the Cats money line, just thinking like at some point they're going to get hot and make some shots. I was telling you early, like it was reminding me of the Missouri game, and I was like, all we need is like one big shot and then a defensive play, and we can get right back in this. And part to Tennessee's credit, but we just could never get kind of over that hump. There were a couple times, we would get it to 12 or 13, and you're thinking, hey, if you can just get a stop here, you're good. And they would force, Lanier into a tough three, and he would miss it, and then offensive rebound, put back, and the building would just deflate. So yeah, just never in it. Extremely disappointing way to finish Pope's first season, which overall I know we'll get into later. I think was a huge positive. It just sucks it kind of ended this way.
Yeah, it really does. And you saw it kind of like the Missouri game. Thought Kentucky had a little bit of something to come back for. I think I looked at you with 14 minutes to go in the first half, and I was just like, this is just over. It felt like that Ole Miss game to me, where anytime you needed a stop, you either got one and couldn't get the defensive rebound, or they were hitting a tough contested two, which obviously if you watch Tennessee play Houston, they did none of that in the following game. So something that we weren't used to seeing Tennessee do. But, one of the biggest stories of the game, Tennessee had 34 rebounds in total. We had 24. They had 14 on the offensive side, and we only had 17 defensive rebounds. It kind of tells the tale of the tape there, and the reason why Tennessee got so many more shots than the Cats did.
Yeah, I was obviously extremely disappointed with the rebounding overall, especially from the bigs. Amari only getting 4 in this game. Lamont Butler was your leading rebounder, and I know we'll get into it, but I'll go ahead and say, like me and you said, probably his second best game as a Cat outside of that Louisville game. But 7 of 10, 4 or 5 from behind the arc, 18 points and 6 boards. He was the reason you were in it. And I told you at one point there in the second half, I'm like, with Lamont being our best 3-point shooter, like we're in trouble. Nobody else. We only made 2 outside of his 4, so you didn't really have a ton of great offense. Obviously, you couldn't grab a rebound. Like I said, there were moments we were watching it, and my cousin's telling me, he's like, if we can just get this to 10 with 10 minutes left, we have a shot. And I'm like, you know what? I do agree with that. And then we'd get it to 12 or 13, and to Tennessee's credit, they either got the rebound or they made a couple tough little turnarounds and stuff, and just never let the Cats get momentum until, then they had the play where they hit a 3 and Brandon Garrison throws it into the, right to Tennessee to hit another 3, and the game was just over.
Yeah. And just to piggyback off of what you said about Lamont Butler, I think it's easily his second best game he played. And it sucks, I kind of told you the preview of this game is just, I want all these guys to play well and feed off each other. And it never happens. Like, you finally get some good games in a row from Lamont, and then Otega struggles. You get good games from Amari, and then BG struggles. Just to highlight your point, Lamont Butler had 6 rebounds. Our bigs in 64 minutes, all 3 of them together, Carr, Garrison, and Amari, had 6 rebounds in total.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks a lot to why Tennessee was able to dominate this game from start to finish, even though they really didn't shoot too well from 3. Still only shot 26% from 3, but they were able to get up 57 shots, and they were making their free throws. Just had so many more chances than the Cats did in this game. And I think that really tells the story. If you would have told me that Tennessee scores 78, I would still think we have a chance, even if Tennessee does score that much. But with how we were playing on the offensive side of the ball, the amount of turnovers we had, and the amount of turnovers we had, especially at bad moments, like you already mentioned, the Brandon Garrison one, or just immediately leads to points. We had a lot of those as well.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about it, multiple times throughout the year. You can almost predict, just looking at the stats at the end of the game if Kentucky won or lost based on their assist to turnover ratio.
Every time.
Whenever we have more turnovers than assists, I feel like we've lost every single one of those games. Maybe there's an outlier somewhere throughout the season, but it really does feel like every loss we just, more turnovers than assists. In part, we're not getting the ball movement. There were a lot of really critical, turnovers at really bad times, Oweh, I feel like all three of his came at times where you're trying to make a run and get back in the game, and if you can get a bucket, you got a little bit of momentum, and it was just a bad turnover. But real quick, back to the point of Lamont, like, it really sucks to see his career in this way. Like, the dude is, Lamarch, everybody called him, and like, he really did probably play two of his, 3 or 4 best games these last 2 games, and just to kind of see it in like that, I really felt for Lamont. And then, obviously you got the video of him and Pope walking out afterwards and putting their arms around each other in the in the tunnel. And there were a lot of other pictures that made both of us put us in our feels. I told you, Saturday I was going to pick up some food, and I turned on the KSR post-game show, and they played the clips of all these guys, talking after the game, Carr and Lamont, and I'm sitting there getting teary-eyed going to pick up my pizza. So, I mean, I really am going to miss this group. I know we'll kind of get to that a little later. But.
Yeah, I really will too. And, obviously, I was critical of Lamont the entire season, but I got to give him his props. I mean, he was great in March. Obviously, fought through injuries the entire year. I give him credit where it's due. I mean, he battled through each and everything he could to be on the court with the guys, and I respect that about as much as I can anything else. And what Andrew Carr, like you mentioned, said after the game, doesn't want to take his shoes or his jersey off, just wants to keep them on. Kobe mimicked the same thing. And, right before they left, Lamont says, it was good to be the start of Coach Pope's tenure, looking for bigger and better things going forward. And Carr saying, hey, anybody in the portal come to Kentucky. I think that just really shows the camaraderie these guys had and how much Big Blue Nation supported this group. I think it's really good going forward to see positivity back in the fan base, and you can see it through the players.
Absolutely. These guys get it, man. And, majority of them are only going to be here for 1 year. But I think in part of a lot of that is, Pope, he gets them here and he's telling them what this place means. But I mean, you heard it all year. We've talked about it multiple times. Like, Ansley Almador constantly just talking, how lucky he was to be here. And, all these guys pretty much said, like, it's essentially just a dream come true. I never thought, I'd play basketball at this level in general, but let alone be here at Kentucky. And then you see it in that in the post-game interviews, like, you got Amari crying on the bench, and I think me and you were at the bar, like, ready to. Yeah, we were tearing up there watching him. So, like, to your point, it is super nice just kind of have that back. Have these guys be as engaged as they are, and a lot of people, bigger picture thing, talk about how NIL and transfer portal is killing college basketball, and these guys, all they're going to care about is money and this and that. Like, yeah, they want their money, but you know what? These guys really do care, and we got really lucky with the guys that Pope brought in this year, and you could just tell how much this place meant to them.
Yeah, and it's really refreshing to see because, a lot of the times with John Calipari, this was just a pit stop on to the next level. So it was good to see where, like, some of these guys, they're going to play overseas. They'll play and maybe get G League invites, stuff like that. But for the most of them, like, these are the biggest games they're going to play.
Absolutely.
And I think they relished in that moment. They actually took it in and were able to, just feed off of that and understand that. Really good to see. I mean, just going over some of the box score recap like we normally do. Amari Williams, 14 points. We mentioned already the rebounding, only 4 rebounds. Was really good from the floor, 6 and 9. I thought he played pretty well. We really just couldn't get those rebounds when we need them the most.
Yeah, I thought Amari played well on the offensive side. I mean, there was that stretch where he was kind of keeping you alive in it. But yeah, just every time we needed a big rebound, it felt like him or whatever other big just could not grab it. So I would say outside of Butler, he was probably the guy that played the best. But still not like your typical Amari game that I think you needed to compete and win against Tennessee.
Yeah, and this might be my favorite Kentucky player since maybe 2017, De'Aaron Fox. This might be the guy I've felt the most connection to since then. Riding with him from the first game when everybody was loud talking about, I was banging the tables. You guys were slandering his name.
I don't know if slander is the right word.
Slandering. Rewatch the podcast. I don't know which one it was. I said that exact phrase. But, man, it was great to see him just come along. I mean, recorded the 4th triple-double in Kentucky history. There's lots of cool stats that this team did that we don't know if we're ever going to see again, at least in the Pope era. So that was really cool to see from Amari, and glad he's one of the ones that got to experience that. The other big that we got to talk about that obviously couldn't really rebound in this game as well, Andrew Carr, 9 points, only 1 rebound on 4 of 9 shooting. And the biggest thing I thought was 0 for 3 from the three-point line, because I know 2 of them were just wide open. I can't remember the third one off the top of my head, but 2 of them he had to knock those down.
2 of them were wide open pretty early in the game, and obviously, if he makes 1 or 2, you're probably not going to win, but that can maybe get some momentum going and get guys rolling. It felt like we just couldn't buy a bucket to start the game, and him included. I thought he was a lot better in the second half. We talked I think 8 of his 9 points even came in the second half. We saw him dunk on a couple people. I don't know if we've seen that really all year. But yeah, the 1 rebound's obviously not going to cut it, and none of your bigs really played well enough to give you a chance in this one.
Yeah, I mean, really, outside of Lamont, nobody played well enough to keep you in this game.
Agreed.
I mean, Otega-Oweh gave you 13 points and 4 rebounds, but 3 turnovers, 5 of 12 from the floor. I mean, really, Otega's had really great moments this entire season, but this last probably like that 8-game spell since that first or second Alabama game, he's just been so up and down and so inconsistent, and it showed off in this game as well.
Yeah, I think Otega is just when we're not getting anything going in the flow of the offense, he just presses so much, and there are times it drives me crazy, but also outside of a Lamont step back 3, I don't know what else was working in this one. So there isn't a to an extent where he's just kind of putting his head down. I think that led to a couple of the turnovers. The low shooting percentage, just when things kind of get out of sorts, he kind of feels like he has to be the guy to go make the plays, and unfortunately just didn't make enough of them on Friday.
Yeah, wasn't able to make enough of them. Unfortunately, same thing we're going to say here with Kobe Brea. Wasn't able to make enough of them. Probably the worst game we've seen from Kobe in quite a long time, especially coming off that Illinois game where he was terrific. Probably what I thought outside of the Florida game, just because he was so hot in that one of his best of the season. 1 of 7 from the floor, 1 of 4 from 3. Only gave you 5 points and 2 rebounds. Really just was a non-factor, except for hitting the very first 3 when we took our first lead. And, when that one went in, it was nothing but net. I was like, okay, man, here we go. Kobe's game, and just never materialized.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought once he made that first one, we were going to be talking about a 15 to 20 point Kobe Brea performance.
Minimum.
But
I was thinking more.
we got more of his first shot when he blew that layup at the rim. So
I had forgotten about that. Thanks for putting that back in the memory.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't, not going to just blame the venue or anything like that. I know that's a big talking point of, playing these games in football arenas, but he just never looked comfortable, and we couldn't really get him quality shots. He had a couple open ones that he missed, but, I don't really remember outside of the one he made that he was kind of open for. It was just, for him to finish his college career with only 5 points, that hurt me. That hurt my soul a little bit. I was expecting a pretty big Kobe game.
Yeah, and I was too. What was it, 5 minutes before tip-off? I put $40 on 20-plus points for Kobe Brea, so I was expecting it too. Really sad to see him go out this way because he seemed to really embrace the life in Lexington and was really enjoying it. Colin Chandler in this game, I mean, I got to give a lot of props to Colin. Earlier in the season, kid looked unplayable through most of the time. Really until that Arkansas game where he started showing a little defensive prowess. That's kind of when everything started to turn around. This game, I mean, nothing really to write home about. 15 minutes, 3 points, a board, and 2 turnovers. And really, that 3 points was just a long heave at the end, right before halftime. Not much that Colin did in this game, but I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do next year.
Yeah, I never thought I would say it, but I almost want to see Colin Chandler shoot more threes now. I mean, he made a couple logo ones, against Illinois, had some big ones in the SEC tournament. A huge 3 there at the end of the first half. That was, a heave. I guess the kid's got better range than obviously we kind of assumed all year. Especially in this kind of game where you're struggling to score, I would have, nothing's working. You might as well try Colin Chandler a couple more deep pulls and just see if you can get some going.
Yeah, I mean, it honestly seemed like if Colin had his feet at the 3-point line, it's not going in. It doesn't matter how open he is. Yeah. He's taking 3 or 4 feet back behind that line, maybe put a little contest in there. It seems like he's going to drill it almost every time. Speaking of another guy, hopefully, looking for a lot to mature in the offseason, get a little bit better. Brandon Garrison really gave you nothing in this game. 18 minutes, 3 points, 1 rebound for him, 1 assist, 1 turnover. I mean, this is just the roller coaster that Brandon Garrison was all year. Gives you good games, takes it right back away the next game. Hopefully a full off season of going with Pope and, knowing what he's looking for in that offense. Hopefully we'll get BG right for next year.
Yeah, essentially just the typical Brandon Garrison game, unfortunately. Almost 18 minutes of action, and he has 1 rebound. And the turnover that essentially put the game away. I know we weren't probably ever going to climb back in it, but that one, he just threw the ball right to Ziegler, and it ended the game. It looks like BG is going to be back next year. I hope he is. I'm not trying to force anybody out.
I got one.
Yeah. Hopefully we can. Hopefully he can mature and just kind of grow into the player that I really thought he would be coming into this season. Part of what made me so frustrated with him was, in our season preview, we said he is the guy that has the athleticism and the body to play in the NBA. He was projected the 42nd overall pick earlier in the year. If he can just put it all together and play with a high motor at all times, there's no reason the guy can't be, a 10-point, 8-rebound kind of guy and have a really, really good senior year. So I'm hoping he kind of puts it together and, hope they bring in another big to, kind of contest him for that starting position, and let's see.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to bring in 2 more bigs. Honestly, I think you kind of saw only having 3 bigs in the system, what it does for you at times, especially when you do run into injuries like we did with Andrew Carr. So hopefully, we'll talk about the transfer portal a little bit later. Hopefully we were able to get 2 of them. What about Ansley Almanor? Not in this game, obviously, but just some guy that we never really expected to play much. We expected him to be one of the last guys off the bench. And he joins the 50-40-90 club for the Cats in this season, minimum 100 attempts. I mean, I think you have to like what you got from Ansley Almanor, especially given what you thought he was going to be coming in from Fairleigh Dickinson.
Absolutely. A kid that comes from Fairleigh Dickinson probably wasn't even one of their better players a lot of times, especially on that team that beat Purdue. He wasn't, not like he was the guy. Mm-hmm. To come here and, I already talked about it. His attitude the entire season, he'll continue to be one of my favorite players, even though, it's not like he was a starter and, some superstar here. He was just a guy that got it, and he always played his role. It didn't matter if Pope put him out there for 6 minutes or Andrew Carr was hurt and he was playing 25. The guy just did whatever the team asked for, and all he could talk about, even if he didn't play a lot, he would just leave with a smile on his face and talk about how cool of an opportunity this is. I mean, he's a guy I'll respect forever, and I'm incredibly happy that he had that moment and got to be here. This is the biggest basketball he'll ever play. Maybe he can go play overseas somewhere, but he'll never have more eyes and attention on him than he did here in Lexington. And I think it's really cool he got that moment because by all accounts, he seems like just an awesome person.
Yeah, and I think you can honestly say that for almost everybody on this team. Really soaked in the role of what it means to be at Kentucky, and it was so nice to see. Obviously, somebody who knows what it's like to be from Kentucky, Trent Noah, great development throughout the season. when we first had, I don't know if you guys remember this name at all, Tyler Britton on this podcast. I mean, that was his
Who?
guy.
Who?
Exactly. I don't know who he is either, but I mean, that was Trent Noah's guy. I mean, that's just,
Yeah.
And we were not expecting him to play at all.
Nope.
Expecting this just be just like a redshirt season for him. Just grew and developed the entire year. Obviously, wasn't really a factor in this game. 12 minutes. The only stat he recorded was a foul in that 12 minutes. So obviously not the best ending for him. But out of the two Kentucky kids, I mean, he was definitely the better of the two and definitely took that step forward. And I'm excited to see what a trimmed up Trent Noah can get, because I think a full off season in college workouts, he's going to be in a little bit better shape this year.
Pope said he wants him to gain 18 pounds. I'm kind of excited for that, to see him get a little more physical and grab some more of those rebounds.
As long as we're getting some good weight put on him.
Yeah.
Let's get some good weight.
The guy, I mean, he obviously played so good in the first two meetings against Tennessee. This obviously wasn't his night, but to your point, we talked before the season. I think we said Chandler would be the freshman that played the most. We thought Travis Perry would get a handful of minutes each game just because of his shooting ability. And I think our exact words were, we won't see Trent Noah at all. So I thought just another guy that, when he needed to at times would step up, and, he had to play a role that he wasn't necessarily ready for at times, but he went out there and played it the best he could. And, in some games played really, really well. And to your point, I'm super excited to see what a sophomore and hopefully even junior and senior Trent Noah looks like for this team.
Yeah, I'm super excited for obviously Pope's second season, a full off season of having a staff, attacking the transfer portal,
No kidding.
Recruiting high school kids as well. Super excited to see that. I mean, this is all I've got for the Tennessee game. I just want to purge this out of my memory. If you got anything else on this one, let it fly.
Just last point, I know, if you look at just the stats, everybody will say Ziegler played really well. I will say, I got to take a shot, because the dude's going to be, working at McDonald's this time next year. So, I thought Lamont played really well against him, and I think even kind of won the matchup, even though Ziegler had 18 and 10, 5 of 13 from the field. The guy, I mean, he was kind of a free throw merchant. Let's not get it twisted. And I would just like to say that he walked off the court. Congrats Tennessee, they got this one, and then they went and got absolutely humiliated by Houston, and we still get to say no Final Fours, and I think we're going to be saying it for a long time.
Yeah, I hope we are. Obviously, those rumors of Rick Barnes retiring, so Who knows who they'll be able to hire if he does in fact go through that. And I mean, I'm finally just happy to see that Zakai Ziegler isn't getting his 15th year of eligibility. I think that's going to be something nice to see as well.
Yeah, I'm done with him, and I kind of feel like Tennessee might kind of fade to kind of some irrelevance coming up. All these guys are gone. If Rick Barnes is gone, who knows who they go and get? And yeah, I'm excited for that. These last 2 years were their shot at a Final Four, and they blew them both.
Yeah, and they only got one win against us. Obviously, it got them to an Elite Eight, but still only one win in those 2 years against the Cats. Let's just go ahead. Give me your favorite moment from Coach Pope's first year. If you got a couple of them, go ahead and fire them off at me. But just go ahead and give me some of your big takeaway moments from the season.
Yeah, I do want to go kind of player by player at some point here, but just overall, I would say the big moments, a couple of them don't even have to do with basketball. I would say back to that initial press conference when Pope got hired, not being super excited about the hire, and then he comes out with the 96 team and he's carrying the trophy, and the whole place is just going insane. That was obviously awesome. The roller coaster of the year. It was just so nice to have a coach, get back to talking about what this place means, and just it was fun again. And I guess a game moment, obviously, the buzzer beaters, but the big one for me was that Illinois game last week. That was the most fun I had watching a UK game since probably that Fox and Monk team. And it was just so nice to kind of have that energy and feel, and even though we lost Friday, to have that whole week of build up to play your biggest rival after, a really nice performance in the second round, like that's what this place means. Now, obviously, going forward, we're gonna have to win those Sweet 16 games, and I think we will. But like, just to kind of have that energy back around here was, I think, the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, I just like the favorite memories, probably that Gonzaga game. You
Yeah,
go all the way out to Seattle after
it
just
was
losing
awesome.
to a Clemson team. You were down by 10 plus in that game. It was the last time you had everybody healthy.
Yeah,
And you really just saw what that team could be. Jackson Robinson didn't play all that well in that game. Kerr breaks his foot and, still gets back on defense. And you still find a way to win. And you beat Gonzaga by a point all the way out in Seattle. I mean, I think that was my favorite one. That's when I was like fully on board.
yeah,
I loved everything that had happened in the off season. But between you and I mean, that happened with Cal a lot. He
yep,
gets you excited in the off season. You'd be like, it's different. He's got this guy to, supplement this guy. We were tired of that old same song and dance. There was actually results put on the floor. And that's when I started really believing in Coach Pope. And I think that was probably one of my favorite moments of the season. And, we're going to get into it player by player, just talking about favorite moments from each guy. But as a team, because this last time we were all healthy, it's going to be my favorite Kerr Kriisa moment.
yeah.
I mean, that's definitely going to be him. Obviously, he has the transfer portal, so it's the last time we saw Kerr in a Kentucky jersey. But go ahead. Who's your first guy you want to highlight? Your favorite moment from him.
Well, I'll start with Lamont. I've obviously been a pretty big Lamont fan all year. Honestly, all these guys, like when we go back real quick, like all of these guys I'm gonna talk about like are some of my, just favorite players to ever play here. And even though this team lost in the Sweet 16, they're gonna be one of my most beloved teams. I mean, me and you were with a friend of mine that doesn't watch a lot of college sports, and he's like, how does this hurt you guys worse than like Bengals and Reds losses? And it's like,
Yeah,
and
this
like
doesn't
I feel like
understand.
we sat there and listed like 15 things. We're like, we'll never see Kobe Bryant shoot another three. Amari will never have a chance at another triple double. Like just list by list, like all these guys meant so
You're
much.
making me tear up here now.
Like
I'm back.
all these guys meant so much to us. But yeah, I'll start with Lamont, and it'll be the Louisville game, obviously, these last two tournament games, but just the toughness of the dude. I mean, they're again, like you hear the way people talk about NIL, you think this guy would get hurt as many times as he would, and he would just walk off and be like, I got my money, you guys figure this out. But like he wanted to be out there. He gave everything he had to this program. I think a lot of the bad games that he played and he was being criticized, he did what he could to be on that floor because this team didn't have another option at point guard. And I just feel like he gave everything he had to this university, even only being for a year.
Yeah, I mean, I think my favorite Lamont moment specifically was probably just that when he picks Zakai Ziegler in that Tennessee. Just to
You
there.
just saw the smile on my face. My
And
face made that worth
just to get
it.
another shot in on Zakai Ziegler as well. That was one of my favorite moments of Lamont. I've already preached Lamont how tough he was this season. Obviously, I was one of his biggest critics during the year. I think
Yep.
there was times where he helped us lose games as well. But I do appreciate the toughness that he showed this entire year. Because like you mentioned, especially in today's game where all these guys are getting paid, he could have very easily have sat out and just collected those checks. If I'm gonna, I don't have a favorite Amari Williams moment.
So many.
I want to pick them all. Honestly,
Floor is yours. Just talk about him for a minute.
I mean, this might just be an hour podcast we're going on here. Obviously, what's going to be remembered the most is that triple double. But one of the ones I remember, his first three that he takes, it's the ugliest shot you've ever seen, but it's just nothing but net. And you're just like, wait, should we start having Amari shoot threes? That's one of the ones that I'll remember the most outside of the triple double, just because it was against Bama. We were playing so bad. We were just getting our ass kicked.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's the end of the shot clock, and your center, who hasn't shot a three all year, just drills it nothing but net. And that's one of my favorite Amari moments.
Yeah, mine wouldn't be a particular moment, but just how much better he got throughout the year. Like, obviously I was pretty critical of him during non-conference, and then he was the best player on the floor for 90% of your SEC schedule, and multiple games that we lost that you would have lost by 40 if you didn't have Amari. There's games that we won because of Amari. Like the triple-double. There's so many stats, like one of the best rebounding efficiencies outside of like Oscar in the last, 15 seasons. He had a perfect game at one point. Like, just
Yep.
the guy was incredible through SEC play and on. And yeah, I'm going to miss watching him put on that UK uniform.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to miss him as well. I'll let you take Andrew Carr to start here. Favorite Andrew Carr moment? I know I've got mine. I'm sure it's probably the same as yours as well. We'll see.
Mine's kind of two, but the Duke game, obviously,
Yeah,
the big and one there. It felt like every big game we won, Andrew Carr had a big and one. He had one against Illinois. He was phenomenal in the second half against Gonzaga. Back to your favorite moment of the year, like you don't win that game without his second half. And just another guy that just battled through injuries, like could have easily packed it up at any point or sat out until he was fully healthy. But he battled through that back injury and was phenomenal really all year. And another guy that'll just be one of my favorite players to play here.
Yeah, and you took my first memory of Andrew Carr that I remember, that Duke game specifically. But I mentioned it earlier. Just at the end, like this guy just lost, and it probably might have played one of his last basketball games of his life.
Yep.
And his first thing is to think about the university and say, hey man, if you're in the transfer portal, come to Kentucky. You want to come to Kentucky, and that selflessness is what I think just describes a lot of this group, and is something I'll make sure I remember about Andrew Carr.
For sure.
That's going to be my best memory of him. Obviously, Otega Oweh, there's a lot of them. I'm just going to pick both Oklahoma games. And you know what? Obviously, basically two buzzer beaters. Obviously, the one in the SEC tournament. I was in my blue and white checkered overalls, had a couple beverages, and we had just lost a 10-point lead to go down. And he goes the length of the floor, puts it up and in for the win. One of the best moments I had this season, even though I went from riding a high of, all right, we're going to get our first win in the SEC tournament, to we just blew a 10-point lead, and then now I'm celebrating with everybody at the UK bar.
Yeah, I mean, there's not another moment to pick with Otega. It's the SEC tournament, but just also that game at Oklahoma. Like, go back to the school that you left, and they're throwing beer cans at you and Brandon Garrison after the game, and
I think those were more at BG.
but still, like, to go out there and score your career high both times against your former team, and then not only score your career high, you make an impossible layup on them for two of the most improbable wins. I mean, yeah, you can't talk about Otega and not mention those games.
I mean, that first Oklahoma game, he scored our last 14 points in regulation of
18,
that game,
right?
I'd say it might have been more than that. I knew it was at least 14. So, I mean, Otega, he owns the state of Oklahoma, still
Absolutely.
does. Hopefully, when he comes back again next year, he'll own the state of Oklahoma again. All right, I'll let you lead the floor here with this one. The sharpshooter, the man from Dayton, Kobe Brea. Give me your best moment.
It's got to be that Florida game, right? Or, I mean, maybe Illinois, too. You could put Illinois in.
That's where I'm going.
But, I mean, that Florida game when he makes 7 threes, probably, another just extremely fun game of college basketball. We talked when we broke down that game just how efficient both teams played offensively. You score 106 points, and Kobe looked like he could not miss in that game. So I'll take that moment, and floor is yours to just talk about that Illinois game.
Yeah, I mean, I have two games outside of that Florida one. That second Tennessee game and that Illinois. I think both of them he played very well, and I think he was able to show that he could score at multiple levels in both of those games, and that's why we were able to beat really good teams when most people didn't think we were winning either one of those games. I genuinely think those were the two best games of his career at UK, even including that Florida one, because we know he can shoot. Obviously, we knew that. We weren't sure he was able to get his own shot, and he did that against Tennessee in the second game and against Illinois. And the thing I love the most about Kobe is just his ability to keep – I mean, pressure just kept adding on him throughout the whole season. Obviously, this last Tennessee game didn't go the way he wanted to, but he took a lot of that load when Jackson went out and was able to continue to build and continue to grow throughout the year. Obviously, we don't even get to the Sweet 16 without him in that Illinois game. So thanks a lot to Kobe Brea for that.
For sure. And, real quick before you jump to the next player. And then one moment, I can't believe this wasn't the first thing that popped in my head. That no-look lob to Otega to put the Tennessee game on ice. I mean, I told you before Friday night, I think I watched that 175 times consecutive. I could not stop watching it, and that moment was probably as excited I've been in a very long time. I mean, we were watching it together and we were jumping up and down. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, such a great memory. And, I'm gonna have a lot of them from
Yeah.
this team. This is gonna be one that just sticks with me for a long time. And somebody I want to make sure we say before we forget, because he's obviously not in any of the box scores for the last 10 games. Jackson Robinson.
Yep.
I think mine was that Texas A&M and then that Mississippi State game. Those back-to-back games. Obviously, against A&M, he's going against Buzz Williams. Probably should have gotten a T at one point. Had such a great game that you could really start to tell he was, turning a corner. And unfortunately, a couple games later, announced he's going to be out for the season. But I do appreciate how much Jackson grew from just obviously that Duke game. He really struggled, didn't play that great in that Gonzaga game either. Just kept growing and kept doing as what was asked for the team. And I think in a game like the Tennessee game in the Sweet 16 where we couldn't buy a bucket, Jackson would have been a real big help.
Yeah, and I hate to correct you here, Cam, but I've been waiting a minute, and then you just reiterated it again.
Yeah, I said the Gonzaga game. As soon as I said it, I was like,
that's actually my favorite.
I meant the Clemson game.
When you were talking about Gonzaga, that was going to be my actual favorite memory of Jackson Robinson. The guy really had him put together a good game. Played a pretty poor first half of that game, and then in the second half when Kerr goes out and he has to slide over and play the point guard role, just takes over the game. I'm looking back at the box score now. Goes 5 of 6 from the floor, scores 13 just in the second half. And then the kind of tragedy of the way his college career ends, to your point, really starting to figure it out, playing like the guy that we all bought in he would be coming into the year. We all said he would be our best scorer, and he really was. He was scoring right around 20, if not more, consistently, finding his footing there in the SEC. And then just to have a hand injury in practice, it's a damn shame that that's kind of the way his college career ended.
Yeah, and it's a shame because, man, in this Tennessee game, I would love to have seen what this team would look like with him in there. Obviously.
Well, that was like at Tennessee. That's another one. That first time without Lamont, he played so well in that game. And, him and Kobe standing there and hyping up the few UK fans that were in there chanting "Go Big Blue," and he's holding his hand up to his ear to it was that'll be an image that I think will last a long time in Big Blue Nation.
Yeah, there's been so many memories about this season that you almost forget until you're reminded of.
Absolutely.
Just like that one in general. That was a great one as well. Let's talk about AA Ansley Almanor. Obviously, we're going to remember being a part of the 50, 40, 90 club. I remember that Mississippi State game where he hit 3 threes, and it just felt like anytime he was open, if he was in the corner, he's drilling it. And just, like you said, the humbleness that he showed, the appreciation for being at the university, something was great to see and very refreshing.
Yeah, I've already alluded to it, but that really was he's just a guy that, I'm going to sound like a broken record and continue to say it, but just really understood what it meant to be here, and you could just tell he was super thankful. And the way he talked every game, just you could just tell he didn't think he would ever be in this situation, and here he is. But my actual game moment, it would be that Tennessee game in Knoxville. Andrew Carr only plays a minute or two with the back. Ansley plays I think close to 30 minutes in that game and makes 4 threes, and really just came up with some huge shots in that one. And I think it's without a doubt probably his best game, and he really put you over the hump in Knoxville.
Yeah, and I'm going to steal this one from you here because I don't have too many positive memories just to think of. Obviously, he's coming back, and we're excited that he is going to be coming back. Brandon Garrison, I'm stealing the Oklahoma game from you because I got to get out and take it. Obviously, plays a really good game, almost gets us a technical at the very end of the game, right before it's, sealed and delivered. Gets a beer can thrown at him. That whole game is memorable, but what BG was able to do on that one was especially.
Absolutely. But you actually didn't steal it. That's not my favorite BG moment. I know it's a guy I've been super critical of. I'm really looking forward to, another year of him. Hopefully he can kind of take that next step. Mine is the kind of fight scuffle in the Louisville game. I mean, I know you had quite a few beverages that game, so you may not have remembered that, but I remember getting hyped there at Dickman's watching that and seeing BG kind of not being scared of anybody. I think that's going to be my favorite just moment of Brandon Garrison.
Yeah, it is good to have a player that's not afraid to back down in those situations.
Sometimes he gets a little over the edge.
Sometimes you need to tamper it down a little bit. I don't necessarily need him to be the instigator, but I would like just to back players up. Kind of like, I don't know if you remember that Amari foul very earlier in the season.
That's what I was going to ask. Who was that against?
It was against Amari Williams, but I mean that whole team rallied, and that's when I kind of knew, okay, this team's got some love and appreciation for each other when they were able to stick up for him that quick in that game, and that was really good to see. I believe that was against.
Was that Jackson State?
It wasn't Jackson State. It was one of the very first games. I'm drawing a blank.
But I remember yeah.
This kid, I think the kid's name was like Crash Peters. I think that's what his name was. He had
Crash
one of the dumbest.
Peters, yep. Who did that kid play for?
Yeah. So I mean that was one of my favorite moments, just as a team. Seeing guys bond like that quickly. Yep. I've only played a couple games together, and BG was a big part
Georgia
of that.
State, Crash Peters.
Yep.
the guy played 12 minutes and had 5 fouls. No points, no rebounds, no assists.
It sounds like what you get when your name is Clash Peters. So didn't think I was going to be talking Clash Peters in the Kentucky review of the season. He's probably getting a little too much airtime here.
That's the point. It was just a fun year. There were a lot of moments that you kind of forget.
All right. Skipping over, obviously, Trent Noah. I'm going to let you go ahead and take the floor here. Give me some of what you thought about Trent Noah's season.
Yeah, I mean, again, another guy I had zero expectations for all year. My favorite moment was, probably those threes in the Tennessee game. Really, both Tennessee games, he played really, really well. And then, after the one in Lexington, they asked him like what it meant, and he's like, "My mom still goes to Knoxville to get her hair done." Like,
yeah.
So, those would be my favorite Trent Noah moment.
Yeah, I think just mine in general, just the growth throughout the season. Seeing how he went from getting no playing time at all to then starting to barely crack the lineup and getting in there to at the end of the year, he was getting consistent anywhere from 8 to 13 minutes. And it's just something that I'm really looking forward to him coming back, developing, and just seeing what we got from him. Because you already know he's got the shot. I know he said, in the offseason, he just wasn't expecting everybody to be this fast. And he said in high school he didn't really have to defend anybody because he played zone all the time. So a full offseason of getting in shape, getting his body right. You obviously mentioned Coach Pope once he put him on about 18 pounds. Being able to compete at a little bit higher level athletically in the SEC, I think will mean all the difference for Trent.
Absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree more.
All right. And then, obviously, I think last but not least, no, we got 2 left.
Yep.
Travis Perry. I'm going to be honest with you on this one. I'm not trying to say anything negative. I genuinely don't have anything, so for that reason, I'm going to pass it to you.
For me, it's not a particular moment. I think he played. We've talked about it a bunch. The guy obviously wasn't ready for this moment at this particular time, right? Like, that's not to say, next year or the couple years after that he can't be. But because of injuries, he got forced to play a role that, he wasn't essentially ready for. And I do think it kind of affected the confidence in his shot and a few other things. But you know what? He went out there and gave you all he could. And there were some moments. I mean, he had some games where, he made a couple threes. I remember, now I'm drawing a blank on which game it even was, but I remember that one where...
The Bama games, he had like 11 points. Yeah. It was like our second leading scorer.
But I think it might have been, like, it was one of the late home games. It might have been the LSU game where Trent Noah gets a, long rebound or a steal and then hits Perry for a no-look pass in the corner for a 3. Like, that set Rupp on fire, the 2 Kentucky kids making a huge play. Does. But I for me, just a kid that kind of really came in and, was thrown into a situation he obviously wasn't ready for, but I think did as well as I ever expected him to and gave you everything he had.
Yeah, and, I really wasn't expecting anything from Travis. Really just to be that spot-up shooter, feel like he kind of let me down on that. Granted, all offseason we were talking about how he goes like 98 for 100 on three-pointers and, practice and stuff like that. So the bar was set a little high, and maybe, for me expecting a shooter to come in freshman year, it might have been set a little too high.
Well,
but looking to see what Travis can do in the offseason. But I will be honest with you. I think if he performs like this next year, I think it's got to be a spot where you cut the cord. I know UK fans don't like to hear that, Kentucky's all-time leading scorer is going to be forced out. I don't know if you agree with me on that. If he doesn't show improvement going into next year, I'm just not sure you can have a 6'1" point guard who really can't create his own shot, play well defensively, and really doesn't play make, and have him take up a roster spot, especially in this era of college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, and that could be a conversation for down the line. I mean, obviously, if he stays as good as he is now, he's not going to be good enough to play in the SEC. So it'll just kind of depend on how he grows and performs. But real quick, like we talked about at the beginning of the season, we said he's a guy that will probably play 3 or 4 minutes max on average in a game, and just come in to just shoot a three. And you got to the point because of injuries, you're forcing him out there some games for damn near 30 minutes. So I just think, again, he was kind of put in an unfair situation because of the injuries, but I think he did kind of everything he could to help you in those moments.
Yep. All right. Well, obviously, looking forward to seeing what Travis can do over the offseason, as well as a lot of these guys. Speaking of that, Colin Chandler, I mean, the thing I'll remember the most is how he just went from not being able to get the ball above half court to, being your reliable backup point guard almost when Kobe or Lamont weren't out there to take it over. And just hitting logo rainbow threes in general. Like, I don't know how – I mean, I know in Lucas Oil, he's not hitting the top of the roof there. But there might have been some of them, in these arenas that we played in. I feel like some of those might have scraped the top.
Yeah. For me, I think a particular moment, it's obviously the Illinois game and those two that he, made from the logo.
Yeah.
But the bigger picture is just how much he came along throughout the year. I mean, we said countless times. I mean, really, like through like the first Vandy game, the guy, we said, like, he just can't be on the floor. He's not ready for this moment at all. He looked scared. He looked like a deer in headlights when he would touch the ball early on the offensive side. For that kid to go from that to having that quick trigger in the NCAA tournament, and not only that, like, outside of Kobe Bryant down the stretch, I mean, he was maybe as reliable a shooter as we had on the team. Trent cooled off.
Anybody else?
Trent cooled off, or Ansley had kind of cooled off. Like, I felt as confident with Colin Chandler shooting as just about anybody outside of Brea. So the confidence and just overall, like, if he can take another step offensively, which I have no reason to think he can't. You see how much he progressed just there in 3 months.
Yeah.
Like, to have a whole offseason of playing basketball again, and like if there's another level, and I believe there is, like, this kid could have a huge sophomore year, and by the time he's a senior, he'll be 24. I mean, he could be a dominant college player down the line.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to it. I feel like he's just starting to scratch the surface on what he can do. Especially, he's a good athlete. He's got good side-to-side quickness. You see the shots already coming back. One thing, for some reason, it just popped in my head, and I had to say it, is how that second Alabama game, 5 fouls in 12 minutes. I remember that one very vividly. Yeah. I was trying to think of like a key moment from a game outside of, those big Illinois threes that he hit. That one just stuck in there. I had to say that because I remember he was coming off of a really good game the game before that. We were talking about he's got to get more minutes. He's got to play Sears. We've got to see him try and guard him and take him away. And he had 5 fouls in 12 and a half minutes.
Here, I got another moment for you. How about this one? How about blue-white game when he dunked on BG's head?
That was a good one. What about Big Blue Madness when he dunked on Coach Pope and his wife?
That's true. He won the dunk contest, right?
Yep. I mean, granted, didn't have the fiercest competition. It was him versus Lamont. So, the bar wasn't set too high. Yeah. But, it was a cool moment to see him jump over Coach Pope while he was wearing one of Coach Pope's jerseys.
I
So I'll remember that as
I
well.
did think when he had that dunk in the blue white game, I'm like, oh my God, like we've underestimated how good this kid's gonna be as a freshman, and then it obviously got off to a slower start, but it's nice to see him back to that confidence later in the year.
Yeah. I mean, it took some time, but I mean, you saw the development in just 3 months. Imagine, like you said, a whole off season of basketball where he's not coming off of a 2-year layoff of
Yep.
not touching a basketball. Super excited to see what Colin can do next year.
Agree.
Jacob, obviously, I want to hear your grade for the season. For Kentucky, for Coach Pope, you're the decision maker. Coach Pope comes into your office for his year-end review, and you got to tell him what's the grade that he got.
I think you have to give him, if you're anywhere under like an A minus, I think you're just flat out wrong. I'm gonna give him an A. I mean, this time last year he wasn't even the coach here. It was another week before we hired him. He came in not only with no players outside of Travis Perry being committed, but he didn't have a staff. He had to hire a staff and then in, 3 weeks essentially build a roster that was competitive. I know on paper, like, this isn't going to look as like an all-time great Kentucky team. 10 losses, losing the Sweet 16, only win at one SEC tournament game. But the toughness of this schedule, and to go out there and have more top 15 wins than, any other Kentucky team ever with this schedule, with this roster, like, I can't be anything but happy. I don't think that's lowering the bar here or anything like that. Like, again, if you look at just about every coach's first year places, it's never great. And I think this was as good of a job as Pope could have done. We talked before the year, we both said we'd be happy with a Sweet 16. And then I think as you look at it with the injuries, with the toughness of schedule, like I think they exceeded expectations in every way possible.
Yeah, I'll agree with you that they exceeded expectations. I won't agree with the grade. I'm not going to go too far below you, but I'm going to give them a B+. And it's not necessarily for how the tournament ended. I did say, Sweet 16, and I feel comfortable with that. Obviously, he had a lot of hurdles and all of that as well. We do have to remember, we did get a lot of these donors back and a lot of that money back as well. Obviously, he didn't have as much time to, get that. Obviously, couldn't get high school recruits and stuff like that. But the reason that I have forgiven him that B is just some of these losses throughout the season that I think held this team back a little. Obviously, there was a ton of injuries, and I understand, and I give you a little bit of credit for that. But losing at Clemson didn't end up being a very good team. The loss versus Ohio State, that was a bad loss as well.
That was really bad.
To get handled by Georgia, and then to lose at Vandy, lose at home to Arkansas, get manhandled by Ole Miss, lose at Texas. I mean, there's 4 or 5 games that I think Kentucky should have easily won. Obviously, the SEC was as tough as it's going to be. I can't give you an A at Kentucky with getting to the Sweet 16, only getting to the second round of the SEC tournament. It's just, that's not an A at the University of Kentucky. I understand there were a ton of hurdles and obstacles, and I give Mark Pope credit for getting over almost all of those, and that's why he's going to end the first season with me as a B+.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to say, we don't need to sit here and argue, but I mean, yeah, I disagree. I think, again, just with all the obstacles, all the injuries, being thrown into this with, 3 weeks to build a roster, and, you put together an extremely competitive team. And again, they did have some really bad losses, but they also had a lot of wins on games that they probably had no business winning. I mean, you beat 2 of the Final 4 teams. I think the two teams that are now favored to play for the national championship, you beat both of them. I just think, I mean, if you flipped the big wins and the bad losses, and let's say you win all the games you should have won, but you lose all those top ones, I mean, this team would have finished with the exact same record and probably been, a 6 or a 7 seed in the NCAA tournament. So as bad as some of those losses were, the big wins, I think, kind of overshine and outweigh those.
Hey, listen, I don't disagree with any point you just made, and I'd rather have the big wins
Yep.
and, those a little bit more of those losses, because obviously we broke the record for the top 15 AP poll wins that we had at UK. I don't like moving the goalposts, because once you move the goalpost once, you continue to do
Well,
that. You
I don't.
continue to find
I
excuses.
would disagree with you.
That's something.
I don't think it's moving the goalpost. I mean,
It definitely is,
I
because you're saying as an A, you're saying the only thing
I
you can
mean,
do.
like if we go back and do this again next year, then that's a different conversation. But I think for year one, that's not a move the goalpost. That's let's be real. Like we've always said, obviously it's a different era, and you can build a roster a little faster. But like no one expected us to be even remotely competitive whenever the day Cal left, because we knew all the recruits are going to decommit, everybody's going somewhere else, and you're going to be left with nothing. I mean, there was nothing here. I mean, if you like, I don't know, like the fact a lot of these players weren't even guys that like our fans got excited for coming into the year, and then you lose, the one guy that people were excited for in Jackson Robinson, midway through SEC play, and you still have a pretty solid overall year. I'm not moving the goalpost. I just think in year one, this is a hell of a way to start his Kentucky career.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I mean, a B plus is like a 92% out of 100. So I think we're really splitting hairs here.
Well, we'll split them. That's what we're here for.
Over like 3%. I think it's a slippery slope once you start to allow too many exceptions. And I'll give you a pass for a lot of them. I just can't give you a Sweet 16 being an A with a second round exit in the SEC tournament. But I do want to talk about next year, because obviously, like you mentioned, a full offseason for Coach Pope. He gets his own high school guys that he wants. He's going to have guys returning from his team, and obviously have some of the same staff, if not all of them. What are you thinking for next year? Obviously, we don't know the roster. I'm going to go ahead and go through some of the transfer portal that we have. But just give me big picture, how excited you are for the start of next year.
I'm very excited, especially for some of the pieces we have coming back. You'll bring Owe back. We've talked about what we could kind of see from Colin Chandler. You're getting more athletic. You see that already with the signing of Cam Williams. Like they're trying to get guys that can not only shoot the ball well, but are 6'7", 6'8", that can be athletes. No offense to them, but like I don't see a lot of Ansley Almadors coming back and like having kind of a role on this team. Like Pope realizes, especially in the SEC, you got to be athletic, and you can kind of see that with a lot of the guys he's going after. The portal's a weird era, right? Like there's guys that you hear that they're in on, and then they'll miss out. But then much like last year, then you get Kobe Brea or Lamont Butler at the last minute after you think you missed on Jeremy Roach or the kid that went to UConn, and you're getting these other. So there's a lot that goes into it. I'm not going to judge it one way or another until pretty much the portal's over, because you hear a lot of these college basketball guys talk about how there's still guys that are playing that they think will end up in the portal that will maybe be one of the top 5 players there. So I think he'll build another solid roster, and I think with another year of Tega away and getting more athletic, this team's going to be better next year.
Yeah, and just speaking to the roster, as we'd expected for the people that we expect to come back versus Cam Williams as well, who we got from Tulane, Otega Owe, Colin Chandler, Brandon Pearson, Trent Noah, Travis Perry. You're obviously going to have Jasper Johnson, Malachi Moreno, Caden Lewis. And you mentioned it. I mean, Cam Williams, 6'8", shot 41% from 3. I mean, there's your immediate Ansley Almond replacement, and he's just a lot more athletic and
That's
a lot
a big
younger.
thing. Yep.
So you're going to see a lot of guys who, had a lot of limitness or a little bit limited on the defense side of the ball. With the athleticism that we have, hopefully coming in through freshmen and, more guys that we're talking about in the transfer portal, you're just going to see this roster continue to develop.
Yeah, and it'll be exciting to kind of see some better athletes get in here, but like Cam Williams being the big one. I mean, he's obviously the only transfer we got so far, but to have him, he's your Ansley Almador replacement, but he's a lot more athletic and will be able to defend probably at a higher level. So it's just kind of exciting to get those athletes. And then Malachi Moreno, that was a guy I'm not expecting a ton from, but if you hear like the reports from the McDonald's game and all the practices there, it sounds like he's just dominating. So maybe he'll be further along than maybe I expected, but it'll be nice to kind of have some real athleticism back.
Yeah, it really will. And obviously, transfer portal wise, I'll just go through the list of guys who are still in the market that Kentucky's reached out to. Robert Morris, power forward. Alvaro Fulgaris. I mean,
I
the
watch.
the,
I,
the
wa-
list of names in here are just ridiculous when it comes to pronunciation. So
I
this is
watched.
going to be a butcher.
I watched him drop 30 on NKU and lead a 10-point deficit with 10 minutes comeback. You know, pretty much all on his shoulders. So I mean, sign me up to bring him in.
Yeah. And then Silas Demery, obviously, we watched him play at Georgia. Kentucky has reached out to him as
I
well.
think they said.
And the big,
I think KSR just reported today that he told Kentucky he's not coming. So
well, take him off the board. Take him off the board. You got any other news you want to give me?
Well, I don't know what player you're going to mention, so as we go, I'll give little nuggets here and there.
Yeah. Yaxel Lindenberg, the UAB power forward. I know they met with him. I believe they met with him on Monday.
Yeah.
Last I looked, he was the number one transfer in the 24/7 Sports ranking. Obviously, their rankings are a little bit janky because I think Amari was ranked like 70 something in the transfer portal last year.
Yeah.
You got anything on him? Any news you want to break me now?
Nope. I would love to have him number one player in the portal. I'm not gonna, obviously let's get him here.
And then Florida State center Taylor Bowen.
Yeah, I got nothing there.
We've shot him as well. Keyshawn Hall, the UCF guard. Abdi Bashir Jr., the Monmouth guard. We've reached out to him as well. And what about this guy? He's coming from Maryland. I mean, that's a little bit of a red flag. There's nothing good comes out of the state of Maryland. But getting a Gillespie on the team?
Yeah, I'm so scarred. I'm so scarred. I mean,
last time we had a Gillespie, it worked out so well. Jacob Gillespie, the guard from Maryland. We've reached out to him. Victorious Miller, the LSU guard. We obviously played him this year.
Yeah.
Lamar Wilkerson, the Sam Houston guard. I think he scored, 24 points per game this year.
Great three-point shooter.
Mackenzie McBango, the Indiana power forward. That's what I'm saying.
He was on campus today.
These names that they've got me saying right now are ridiculous. Reed Bailey, Lee Davidson, power forward. He averaged 18 points per game this year. And then Rylan Griffin, the Kansas guard, transferred from Kansas after he transferred from Alabama. These are some of the guys that it's known that Kentucky's reached out to. Any of those guys that, you're dead set on you want in?
I mean, I honestly trust Pope. I mean, everybody, I see it all over online. Like, everybody's freaking out because, like, we only have one commitment so far. Like, I just want to tell everybody in BBN, like, relax, right? Like, there's all the big schools. Like, I don't think Kansas or Duke have a commitment yet. UConn, I think's only got one. Like, there's a lot that's going to unfold over the next month and a half. Like, let's just be patient and, like, don't think just because we reached out to someone and then they don't come that we whiffed. Like, there's a lot more that goes into this now. Like, how much do they want? That's the other part. We're not seeing, it's not like NBA contracts where what they're signing for elsewhere. If you have, I don't know what our budget is. Let's just say it's $5 million. Maybe it doesn't make sense to give Dent 3.5 when you're going to have to pay Ortega another 3, or whatever. Like, Ortega's probably going to make the most money on this team next year. So you got to figure it out from there. I just tell everybody to relax. I think they'll get one of those power forwards, either the kid from Robert Morris or Dayton. And then I expect, obviously, a playmaking point guard and a couple bigs, to your point. And we'll just go from there.
Yeah, like you mentioned, just really trust Pope in this. I mean, they look at this stuff the entire year. They have a dedicated guy who just, like, watches random college basketball games and puts all the algorithms into a database and just says, hey, we should look at these guys in the portal. So he knows what he's doing. Obviously, our transfer portal class didn't rank up that high last year either, and it got us to the Sweet 16 with basically no freshman production. So trust in Pope in this. Obviously, you'd want to see it come together a little bit faster. It's April 2nd. I think April 7th is when they have that big, decision-making for the NCAA. Yep. So you'd like to see a couple more commitments before then, but I'm still definitely not having any sirens or panic alarms.
Yeah, and just think about how many players have hit the portal, and then compare that to, like, high school recruiting. Like, if every time that, like, you reached out to a high schooler over the course of 4 years and then they don't commit to you, if you consider that a whiff, like a lot of our fans do, online for the portal, like it's not a whiff. Like these guys are pretty much taking 2 weeks to talk to every single school, and there's obviously some guys that are solely bag chasing and they're going to go wherever that pays them the most, and then there's other guys that obviously want to make a good amount of money, but they're going to go to the best fit. And I just think it's such a new era. Like I don't think we're going to be able to judge any of our rosters going forward until probably end of May every year.
Yeah, and obviously we will try and keep you updated on everything that happens in the transfer portal. Jacob's going on a cruise, so I will probably just be keeping you guys updated on the TikTok. I'm sure he'll be sending me stuff on Twitter if he sees anything. Jacob, you got anything before we sign off here, before the transfer portal really starts getting going?
No, but one more point on the portal, just briefly. You're going to have plenty of guys that are pulling out of the NBA draft that are going to be coming back once they don't get good feedback. So, again, just don't panic. I'm going to enjoy my next week of being on vacation, and fortunately, I don't have to make plans around the Final Four and national championship game.
Unfortunately,
but I get to kind of just relax. But yeah, it would have been a good problem to have to figure out how we were going to record while I'm in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, definitely would have. I couldn't imagine the amount of technical troubles. We can't even sit down at both of our home bases and get stuff done.
We would have figured something out.
Yeah, we definitely would have. Looking forward to it. Obviously, guys, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, on X. Jacob's doing a great job keeping you guys updated over there. Wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, YouTube, we're there. We're everywhere. We'll keep you updated during the off season. It's been a hell of a year and one I'm going to remember for a lot. Jacob, thanks for going through it with me. Obviously, first year on the pod. We're looking to develop a lot during the off season. We're getting in the lab too, guys. We're getting in the lab too. This is our freshman year.
Yeah.
We're going to get in the lab over the off season. We're going to bring you a lot of good content.
Yeah, maybe before we have a whole new roster, Cam can give away the basketball that he's been talking about giving away for the last 6 months.
Hey, I didn't have a single. We'll get there. I got a basketball to give away. You guys know this. I'll put it out again on TikTok. Somebody wants to claim it. I'm trying to give it to Kentucky fans. This is one of the best Kentucky teams when it comes to just welcoming Big Blue Nation back. And I want somebody to feel that, have a piece of that Kentucky history.
Yeah, and hey, I can't believe the whole time we talked about Lamont Butler, we didn't talk about the best moment, him rapping at Big Blue Madness, rapping his own song. We listened to it all year.
That song every game day. It's usually on our pregame every post.
Even when he's gone, I'm still playing it. Like even next year.
I still listen to Do the John Wall, and this has been 16 years ago. All right, BVN. That's it for the 2024-2025 Kentucky Wildcats basketball season. Thanks so much for joining us on this ride. We'll keep you updated here soon. Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.